Welcome to Always Ageless with Valerie V. Today we are excited and honored to welcome Cyndi Lesinski to be our guest on our show. Cyndi is a dedicated full-time real estate professional with over 20 years experience in the Los Angeles market. She's known for her excellent personal skills and her marketing skills with an impeccable track record. However, Cyndi draws upon her extensive background in social work to help clients achieve their goals. So whether she's handling downsizing or move-up buyers or right-sizing, Cyndi has definitely earned her reputation as a caring, enthusiastic, and dynamic individual. When it comes to choosing the right person to represent you or your family in a difficult transition, Cyndi is a person you'll definitely want to make your go-to. She holds a bachelor's of science degree in sociology and social work. She specializes in all types of situations, complicated family situations, serving seniors and their families, clients with disabilities and life experiences in all kinds of real estate processes. But today, Cyndi is here to share her personal story, her family challenges, and how she has taken on the role, both professionally and personally, as one who serves seniors with excellence and with empathy. Cyndi, welcome to Always Ageless.
Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate having the opportunity to share a little bit about my story and help answer various questions and things about just the world that you and I work in on a regular basis.
That's right, we do. So we're going to start out talking about your personal and your family situation. You have an unusual situation with your mom, or we share a similar story. Both of our moms are from families of 16 children. So tell me about how your upbringing with her and how her upbringing has influenced her personal life and her impact maybe on Ageless and on family.
You know, growing up as the daughter of the 15th child of 16, I was always surrounded by older people, you know, myself being the youngest of 4 kids, but then being in the lower tier of 90 first cousins. I have first cousins that are older than my mother. So
yeah,
if you think about it, my mother was an aunt before she was born. And so being from a large family like that and a very close-knit family, you know, having family reunions and holidays, I mean, all of the kids did not get together through the years, but I would say half of my mother's brothers and sisters I got to know really well. And I was always around them as a child, and I always was helpful to them from just simply helping get their coffee for them when they would be visiting to, you know, just serving them in many ways, helping them get into the car. And then once I got my driver's license, being able to drive my grandmother home every Sunday after Sunday dinner and spending that quality time with my grandmother. And, you know, so it was just the environment that I grew up in was always being around a large family, a family that was much older than myself.
That's very interesting. So a lot of your family members were around you. They were close to you where you lived?
Yes. Yeah. Although we often joke that we have every state covered with, you know, the extended family. And as people continued to migrate outside of the Pittsburgh area, because that's where I'm from, at one point, my mom and 6 of her brothers and sisters moved to Los Angeles. And I was actually born in Downey. But when I was 3 months old, my mom drove us back across the country to meet my dad because he got hired back at the mill. And so A few of her brothers and sisters stayed in California, but several of them moved back to Pennsylvania. And then at that point, the family started moving all around the country. But we still have family reunions. And every year at our family reunion, we have a tribute table of the 16 kids. My mom is the remaining child of the 16, and
Really?
she's 88 years old, and she still mows her own lawn. She lives in Pennsylvania, and she still lives in her home that my dad and her built 25 years ago. And she mows her own lawn. She washes her windows at least once every 2 weeks. And she will not slow down because she said if she slows down, she'll stop. And she doesn't want to stop.
And she's the youngest of the 16?
She's the youngest of the 16.
Wow, what a coincidence. My mom is the middle of 16 and she's still alive. She's the only one still alive. The other ones. What a coincidence. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So have you ever been involved in your mom's care, or has she been able to keep her independence?
So with my mom's care, the main thing that we do in helping her with her independence now is a combination of really my sisters who live within a 5-mile radius of her. They assist her some as much as she mows her own lawn. She has a lot of other care that needs to be taken care of that. So they go over weekly and help her with her shrubs and a few other things. They are now taking her to her appointments, but she still does drive. She drives. She'll drive to my sister's house. Now, a funny story actually about my mom is, and it's about her keeping her integrity of her independence. I own an Airbnb that is located just 2 miles from my mom's home. I hired my sister and my mom to be my house cleaners. And the one day, this was about 2 months ago, my mom took my hands and she's shaking my hands and she's like, "I need to thank you." And I'm like, "What, Mom, for being your favorite daughter?"
Sure.
And she's like, "Oh, you're just so funny." And I'm like, "What do you need to thank me for?" And she's holding my hand so hard. She goes, "I like to make my own money. I am glad that I work for you. I don't want handouts, but I like making my own money. And thank you for letting me clean your Airbnb."
Oh, how sweet.
So that really helps fill her soul of she's still needed, she can still do something, that she can make some extra money so that she can go to the casino and play blackjack.
Is that right? And we've learned, Cyndi, as you and I have studied serving seniors together, the importance of them maintaining some independence and being able to make their own decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
So she has her own money.
We have those kind of conversations with her. And, sometimes it's a little difficult. With talking about as time progresses, she's doing great at this time, but what are her wishes for the future? And there have been even some conversation about the setup of her home that she owns. She made it very clear to my sisters that all three of us, my brother passed away 4 years ago, which was very traumatic for all of us, of course, but a mother never wants to lose their child. And I can talk a little bit more about that after. But with regards to making her wishes known, the three of us will inherit the house equally. But she made sure she told my sisters that Cyndi has the first priority to buy you all out. If she wants to buy this home, I want her to have the home. And
Oh,
so that was something she made very clear. I don't know why she thinks I would buy her home, other than I like to buy houses, but I love her home. It's in the middle of the country, it's a beautiful place. But I never even mentioned an interest in that. But that was in her mind. And she wanted to make sure that we all understood that.
and that's an example of aging adults who don't want to move out of their home. Because I think you and I hear a lot about the silver tsunami, and all these people are going to move, and all these people are going to turn older, and they all want to downsize or want to move. But that's really not the case. And your mom is a perfect example of that.
Yes, absolutely. And, within her home, through the years, even myself of helping people move, I've become a minimalist, and I help people purge and go through things. I help them understand the value of time versus the value of trinkets. And my mom has taught me that more than ever. Um, so my husband, he has an aunt. Well, she had passed this last year. And so we were the beneficiary of her home in Youngstown, Ohio. And when she passed, it was very unexpected. My husband actually had helped take care of her as well as a few other family members. And we went to her home to get it prepared to get it sold. Well, once again, I employed my mom because she's good at clearing out drawers and things. And we made sure we paid her. If we weren't going to pay her, we were going to pay some company to come in
Sure.
and clear out the house. And she's like, I'm not going to take this money. And I'm like, Mom, you worked hard. And she worked hard. She was exhausted 2 days in a row, exhausted. And so after she helped clear out Mark's aunt's house, Mark, my husband, she went home, and the next 3 months, she worked on clearing closets out, clearing
Really?
drawers out. And she said, if I don't want to go through this stuff, why should I leave it for you to go through when I pass? And I went to her house a couple weeks ago because I live in a different state. I went to her house a couple weeks ago. I was shocked of how little she has in her closets, in her kitchen. She's like, I only need this amount of silverware, this amount of dishes. I know what bowls I use. And she cleared it all out.
Well, good for her. Let's talk about your husband, Mark.
Yes.
You and your family have also been impacted by his side of the family. He moved, if I understand it, you can tell us your story. He moved to another state to be his mom's caretaker. Yeah. And even when he's dealing with his own health issues. So this must be very challenging for him and for you, Cyndi, and for you as a couple. So how has this influenced your family dynamics and your approach to caregiving? And how do you feel about this situation?
It's something that we feel compelled to do. It's something that we feel we're in a position to being able to do it. It's understood that a lot of children, adult children, are not in a position to do what we currently do. So I just want to even make that clear that, not everybody has the ability to live apart together. First of all, for my husband and I to have a strong enough relationship that we can live apart together happily and know that it's what we need to do and that it's just temporary. that we know that our arrangement that we have to do is temporary. When we were younger, we lived far apart for a time period because of careers and things that were going on when we were younger as well. So we're like, hey, it's like we're back in our college days and like fresh out of college. This is what we have to do. We're just older now. So COVID hit my husband's business very strong, and he had not been working as much. He's a musician, comedian, and people were not allowed to laugh and enjoy life, and corporations were not hiring entertainment. And so thankfully, with my career, I am a realtor, and as a realtor, thankfully, we thought that my business was going to be hindered, but in reality, I just stepped up and continued to be busy. So we made a decision that he was able to go and live in Ohio, Pennsylvania area and be able to get his mother situated into staying into independent living. And almost for a year, he was able to have support staff go in. He would go in as well. Typically, he would only be with her 2 hours a day. It's important to know your level and relationship with your parent of what is sustainable. And for him, we figured it out that the most he could really be with his mom was 2 hours a day, unless he arrived there in the evening and she was ready for bed and they would watch a little bit of TV and then go to bed. And he'd be with her first thing in the morning and leave. If they were together too much, the relationship would get too strained. So we created a plan that worked out really well for almost a year. And then as her dementia started progressing, it came time for us to make a decision to find her a good, healthy, safe place where it has staff around that could help her on an ongoing basis. So, but at the very beginning of all that, that transition actually was helping get her home sold, clear out her first home, and work towards moving her into an independent living place. And again, her progression went very quickly, that only lasted for a year before needing to go into assisted living.
And she's in assisted living now?
Yes. Yeah. And it's only been like 3 months. Actually, yeah, about 3 months that she's been in there now. What we actually did is we still transitioned her, and we had the ability to keep going back to the independent living place and going into the assisted living. And then she's been permanently at the assisted living for a month now, which was very timely because, as I had mentioned to you before, my husband has been diabetic since age 2. And 3 weeks ago, he had quadruple bypass surgery. Had we not been in a position of his mom being in the assisted living, things would be very complicated right now. And we're just so grateful that we made the decisions that we made when we made them to help her so that she could be in a good, safe place that has excellent care, and that, Mark is now able to take care of his own health at this time.
But the plan is that she'll stay in assisted living from now going forward.
Yes. Yeah. And his mom is 91. Yeah, she's 91.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we talk about these things, and certainly I think there's 2 segments of of older now. We talk about 55 plus communities, which I'm going to ask you about in a few minutes. And we think of 55, we used to think of 55 plus as being older. Now we maybe edge up to 65 plus. And the book I'm reading says, well, really it's 70 or 75. And so he has his needs and she has hers, and everybody has their own challenges. And it's great that you as a family can do that. And I'm sure she appreciates it.
Yes. Yeah.
We only have so much time to spend with our parents. We used to say we only have so much time to spend with our children,
right?
Which is true. And now we only have so much time to spend with our parents. So it's definitely a challenge. So let's move on to your professional life and your business, and now how you're helping seniors and children of aging parents. And you shared your background and how you always took care of the older family members and the cousins and the aunts and uncles and the grandmas. And was there a specific event or a person that influenced you to where you decided that, yes, you really wanted to focus on seniors? And was it something you started when you started your real estate career, or did you start your real estate career and then you moved into that? What was it that led you in that direction?
Well, one of my aunts, my Aunt Florence, who lived until she was 98, lived on her own in her own little house and drove around and everything up until I think she was 95. She was still driving. She was a nurse. And as a little girl, I loved that she was this nurse and how she would care for people. And I was like, I think I want to be a nurse. I want to care for people. And so that caretaker aspect was introduced to me by my Aunt Florence. And rather than becoming a nurse, I actually became a social worker. And in college, there was various classes you had to take. And one of the classes I took was working with senior citizens what it was actually called. And I even did my internship at the senior center. And then one of my first jobs was working on assessing Meals on Wheels and helping seniors stay in their home. And, I'm 19, 20, and, I love listening to older people's stories and helping, do whatever and help guiding them. So as my initial, profession as a social worker, I started out with serving seniors. And then I progressed and started working with foster families and kind of the complete opposite end of the spectrum of helping kids stay in their home and seeing what I can do to empower foster youth in their home. And then after, I look at it as I retired from social work when I started having my daughters, and I retired for several years. And then once I decided to get my real estate license, I got my license, and I didn't really go into real estate thinking I'm going to serve seniors, but I would find often that I would be referred to work with older homeowners, and I just excel at it that by working by referral, I would keep getting the same type of clientele because friends would say, oh, you worked so good with my mom. My aunt needs help. This person needs help. And of course, I work with all age groups and everything, but a high percentage of my clients are older homeowners.
That's interesting. And Aunt Florence was one of this other 15, right?
Yes.
The other 15 children.
Yeah, she was the fourth child.
Oh, she was.
Yeah. Yep.
So tell us, what are some of the unique challenges that you face when you're helping seniors downsize or transition to different living arrangements?
Well, in our area, a lot of times it's heavily impacted by the affordability aspect of
Yes.
things. As much as their home was affordable when they moved in, the cost of maintaining the home, the cost of how utilities have gone up. Taxes typically are not an issue because their taxes are still relatively lower based on when they had purchased the property. So it starts to come into their ability to maintain the property. And so in going into their home, many times we're dealing with a home that has not been maintained as well, and that I need to assist them with getting the home truly ready to make that transition. But some of the things that we really work on with them is helping teach them how to pack, how to prepare for the future move. So that's kind of more of the visual, the physical part of it. But there's that mental part of it that we really have to be good listeners. And we have to listen to what their needs are and really chime in to helping them with whatever their need is. It almost feels like there's never just one thing because every person is an individual. Every home is an individual home. So you have two unique body parts that we're dealing with. And so their individual needs within that home and within the community they live in has to be designed for them. So for me to be able to just say, this is what I always run into, it's more of what I always run into is I need to be a good listener and really be prepared to have the resources to help with whatever their specific need is.
Do you ever have situations where one of them maybe thinks they should move or wants to move, and the other one just says, I'm not moving. You'll have to carry me out if you're in a pine box.
Well, I actually have a situation right now. I have a couple I'm working with, and the home that they currently own is more in the center of the city. And unfortunately, the surroundings are not as safe as it was when they moved there 35 years ago.
Sure.
And he wants to be in a safer community for her. And she just wants to be with all of her plants in her garden that she's created. And she doesn't want to leave her backyard. But when they go to leave the house, he's afraid to leave the front yard because there unfortunately are homeless encampments and tents and things on the sidewalk right where they live. So it's been interesting. They're like 70, 72, so they're still very viable, and
Sure.
they go out. He still has work and is not retired. So I have to listen to what both of their needs and concerns are. And his is her safety, and hers is her backyard.
Sure.
And so in the new home that they are purchasing, we often share some ideas and stories as to what she's going to be able to do with this new backyard. And we even use the technology where the one app on the phone, we can look up what kind of trees are already there, what kind of shrubs are there, and what will grow in this natural habitat versus where they're at, because even though it's only 30 minutes away, the temperature is a lot different, and the ground and the dirt is a lot different. So I'm going into more gardening aspect of things to help meet the needs of this particular buyer.
Have you ever had a situation where the children get involved and they say, we don't think our parents are qualified or able to make a decision on their own? And even if they are, we want to say so. And the children come in and they want some kind of a voice in what's happening to their parents. And they want to be sure that the person in your situation isn't there to take advantage of them or to give them advice that the children might not want. What would you do in a situation like that?
So typically, I review things with the parent. I had a situation where the parents wanted to sell their home and move into assisted living. And the son was very supportive of that, but yet he wasn't as understanding of certain needs of what that transition really looked like. And, their desire to hold on to a certain amount of things and his desire to just let it all go. You don't need any of this. Let it all go. And so there was a balance of that, because in reality, what his wishes were is what really needed to happen. And so I became the buffer for them and him as to, yes, this is what needs to happen, but this is how we can get there. This is how emotionally we can get there with your parents so that they transition to their new place and not be thinking that they threw away things that they should have kept. And so it was more of being that in between negotiator with family members. And typically, I've not run into where anybody's been really actually, I just ran into this. I was going to say that nobody's really created any kind of issues or anything. But that being said, we have a new listing right now that one son just got power of attorney and is helping his mom move from California to Hawaii. And the other son, the mother also made it known to us that he's allowed to come in on this one day and take whatever he wants, but then he's not to have access again. And she wants the son to have power of attorney to be able to handle everything for her. And she did have a falling out with this son, with the second one.
Okay.
But we have no part of that. That is not, in this situation, that is, we are not dealing with that. We're dealing with her and the son that she wants us to deal with. That's what her wishes are. And so we're following what her wishes are.
And those are difficult situations, especially between siblings and the resentment that can follow with that. It's very, very challenging. So we know that decluttering can certainly be an emotionally charged process. So do you have systems for that, or do you have support people that you have come in, or do you use checklists, or what kind of things do you do to help with the decluttering situation?
I have a couple different companies that when it is in a situation where we need to really lean into a full-on team and company, we have that in place. But there are times where they may not have the resources to pay for that. And I've gotten down on the floor and just start, let me help you go through this. I'm a good declutterer myself. I think that would be a business that I would start up even. I love to help people clean out their closets and get rid of things they never wear and never use. So I put it out there at times when it's appropriate. Would you like me to help you? I would love to come over. It's something that gives me joy. So if you need my help, I'll come over and help you clear out a kitchen or a bathroom, a closet, whatever you need. But then there's times where that's not appropriate, and it's more appropriate for me to say, here's the company that can really help you.
And then you just turn them over to that company or have them work with you and you take them into the home.
Yes. Yep. And I make sure I do a true introduction. I'll give them the contact information. I make sure they know to tell the company that, Cyndi Lesinski referred me to you. But then I also send a message to the company saying, I want to let you know I referred Valerie to you. So if she reaches out to you, you know that that's somebody that I really know, like, and want you to provide the best service possible. And then they always take excellent care of my clients.
And it's so hard. It's so hard for people to give up things, even if it's, I've heard a story of someone, the lady just wanted to take her refrigerator with her. And she's upset that her daughter gave her refrigerator away without asking. Because after all, that was her refrigerator.
Right.
And especially, as in our parents' age, where they've got things that they've had and they brought with them, or they've lived in the same house for a long time. And then you take those things away from them. And it's very, very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Well, and even with that being said, my husband's mom, when we got her moved into the assisted living, she has a dresser that's in her assisted living that has nothing in it, but she had to keep that dresser.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing in it because she has a big closet and 2 other dressers, but she had to have that one. And if that's what made her happy, and it came down to that's the only other thing she needs, it's like, okay, well, there's room for it, so we'll put it in there.
I don't know if
but
you've
a
heard
refrigerator, we would not have been able to accommodate.
No, I know. And I think you've probably heard of this. There's a company called Artifacts, but it's not spelled exactly that way. And people can take pictures of the things that they give away and then create a book or a software program where then they can look at those things and keep their stories close by them. Their memories are still there, even though they had to let go of those physical things. And I'm sure there are other programs as well.
I just recommend the simplicity of, say, the daughter or the son, whoever's maybe helping, just using the phone and take the picture and create a file on the phone. And, I've done that for myself when I've moved and purged through things. I would take pictures and I have a file of, our move from 2 years ago. It's like, okay, everything I got rid of that I'm like, oh, I don't want to get rid of this, but I don't need it. Okay, snap a picture, put it in the file. If I ever want to revisit again, I can look at it on my phone.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And even if they don't need them later on, then you have it for your family and your children to look at and so forth.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to a family and their children possibly who are thinking of downsizing? Or let's say you have a child that calls you and says, I live in New York. My mom lives in your market area. I know she likes you. She wanted to list her home with you, but I don't know what to do. I can't come and help. So what services do you provide to that person? How do you make them feel comfortable that you're taking care of their parents for them? Do you stay in touch with them, or how do you do that?
That's a great question. Yes. So as long as the parent gives me permission to have open conversations with the daughter in the area, then I'm more than happy to keep them fully included. A lot of times, most of the time the parents like, oh, my daughter lives in New York and I want her to know everything. She wants to be bossy, but I'm the one that's going to make the decisions and I just need to let her know. Sure. I'm like, I got you. So, we work through a really good communication system of making sure then that child in the other state gets emails, updates, Same kind of emails and updates. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
updates that I'm providing to my client. And I would have various conversation with the person that's actually selling the home. And then I follow up with an email saying, based on our conversation, I want to go through the summary of what decisions we've made and where we're at in the process and what our next steps are and what our goal is. And I do nice summaries so that then the child that's out of state is like, I don't have any questions. I try to answer whatever questions they are thinking about so that they don't even have to ask me questions. And then that builds their confidence up.
Right.
That I am taking care of things and that everything's going to be worked out. And then, of course, I'm the one that ends up with questions of, okay, we're going to do this. What is your plan with what we're going to get done? Our goal is that everything's going to be complete and the house will be ready to be listed the first week of July. We anticipate that the move out date is going to be the end of August. So are the plans still that she's moving into your guest room? Do you have the guest room prepared and ready? Is it, user friendly for her because she is, she needs to be on the first floor and needs to have the bathroom, nearby her. She can't go up steps. So, whatever that need is, and making sure I'm taking care of it on this side. Do you have it ready on that side? Because often people are so worried about what we're doing on our end. And then it's time for that move. And they're like, oh, we forgot to order the mattress for the new bed. It's like, she's going to be there in 3 days. What do you mean? So we've learned to avoid those situations by the open communication.
Yeah. And I know that they must appreciate you because, especially if they're the older children, many of them still work and they don't think of all those things and they don't have the time to, and they don't know what they should be thinking of. So I'm sure they appreciate you thinking of those things for them. So we had some emails. We got some emails from people who knew you were going to be on, and let me ask a couple of those for you. Okay.
Sure.
Here's one from Mark from Huntington Beach, and he asks, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting the process of helping their parents downsize? Should they be looking for a place to move first, or should they start the downsizing process and then look for a place to move to?
That's an interesting process of that too. And it's partly the mental health aspect as well. For most people, I would say downsizing their current living as to, we know we currently live in a 2,000 square foot house that is filled with things that we're not going to take. So really meeting with somebody that can truly help them decide on what things they need to distribute to family members. And often older people think, oh, I'm saving this for this daughter and for this son. And unfortunately, often our kids don't want any of our stuff. And so it's important to find out, what are you saving to give to other people that you're not going to move to a smaller place when you go in. So having somebody help them way in advance to declutter their home. And that decluttering process helps start the process of preparing that someday you're going to move from here to somewhere else. We don't know where it is yet. We don't need to know where it is yet, but what we know is we're going to be looking for something that's maybe, 1,000 square feet, which could be a third of your current home. And we want it to be comfortable, something without steps, something that you're going to be closer to us, something that's going to be closer to whatever your life needs are, which includes being closer to your son or daughter or family member. And the best starting point is really working towards decluttering the home of things that are not needed to be moved anywhere else.
And would you say it's important at this point? We should break here for a second and talk about the word declutter, because I think a lot of people think that declutter means there is clutter in the home, but everybody doesn't live in a cluttered house.
Correct.
And so maybe clutter doesn't mean clutter that your house is messy and full of junk and you can't even find a place to sit down. But clutter could just mean, for this purposes, would you define it, what people should think of?
And I'm so glad that you bring up that point, because that's absolutely right. As I had shared earlier about my own mom's house, she's always lived simply. Her decluttering was, she had a linen closet that had 7 blankets, 6 sets of sheets. And instead she took it down to 2 blankets and 2 sets of sheets. It's not that she had a ton of things, and you couldn't walk through, but, just shimmying your way through. Not at all. It is about living more simply with the fewer things that you use all the time. You don't need, a set of 24 dishes to serve 24 servings, when the most people you have at your home are 2 or 3 people. And if it's more than that, bring out the paper plates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I have to confess, I have more than 2 blankets. I tend to not give away my blankets, and I have blankets I haven't used and probably never will use, but still they're my blankets. Or the other story, of course, is a good old wedding china, right?
Yeah.
China that we all had to get for our wedding gifts, and we haven't used it since our wedding, and we didn't use it then.
Yeah.
So, yes,
well,
right.
The wedding china for me, COVID came and I saw that china that was so expensive, and I'm like, we're using dishes that were like $25, and this really expensive china that we got for our wedding have not been used. I tossed out the $25 dishes, and we use our good Lennox china. And I'm like, I hope I break one, because if I break one, it means I'm using it and I'm getting the use out of it. So that's my little story about my Lennox dishes.
Yeah, that's a great story. So we had that conversation in our house too. It's like, why are we saving it? Why don't we use it? What if something happens tomorrow and we're not here anymore? That china just sat there. So very interesting. And another question we got from one of our listeners was, what are some of the common mistakes you see families make when helping their loved ones transition, and how could these be avoided?
Sometimes, waiting too long to have those conversations. Have the conversations before they really do start to potentially get Alzheimer's and get a little bit, where they can't make decisions. And, sometimes through Alzheimer's, you really struggle all the more. But if the conversations are had earlier, like, I'm 60, I'm already having those conversations with my daughters as I get older, this is what I think I'll be like, and this is what I think I would like to have. And, having the conversations with, regards to even health decisions as to if something happens to me in this way, this is how I want that medical condition to be handled. Having your, living will and, your estate in order, those discussions of what your trust is, and I mean your actual trust, like what did you put in your trust? How do you want things to be handled someday? We all have something that is in common. And, our world is so divided in so many ways, but there's the one thing we can all agree to. We all die,
We do.
we all pass. And so sometimes people say, well, if they pass, if they die. What do you mean if? There is no if about it, and no matter what, we should have some knowledge as to how we want things to be handled. And by preparing for that at an earlier age, you then can prepare for life and for living, because you know how you want the story to end. So how do you want the story to play out?
Mm-hmm.
And I think having healthier discussions about that is really important to the transition of where we are today, where we want to be tomorrow, and where we finally end up and where that resting place will be. Preparedness is so important. And, as adults ourselves, we need to make sure we are prepared. And when we're caring for our parents, the more prepared we are, the more we'll be able to help them.
Yep, absolutely. What are your plans for your future? Do you have any plans as you serve seniors? Do you run across things and say, I'm going to change what I'm doing, or I'm going to improve what I'm doing, or I'm going to implement this new thing into my business because I've seen this situation?
I have some new fun plans because I've connected with people like you that have opened up my mind to some really good opportunities that I have to help educate other people, just with a monthly session. And if I do a monthly session where I have an attorney come in to talk about trust, my person that I really have involved with clutter-free and organization, have her come in and talk about how to organize your home to live more carefree in your home. So every month I want to have a session, and whether I get 10 people or 100 people, as long as I help one person live healthier, better, and wiser in their home, I feel that that's one thing that I can do to helping seniors. So my goal is to, start to have those type of sessions so that I can, help educate people.
Well, there's a great title for a session. Declutter or clutter free so you can be carefree.
Yes.
You brought that up.
Yeah.
Cyndi, it has been our pleasure to have you today. Please tell our listeners how they can find you.
Well, thank you, Valerie. I appreciate being your guest today. And my name is Cyndi Lesinski, and I'm located in northern Los Angeles. And I'm on all the different social media spots and everything. And
yes, she is. And she does a great job.
YNDILESINSKI. And my phone number is 661-510-5516.
And give them your number again, because if people are driving, they might not be able to write it down.
Right. Yes. Well, it's funny you say people driving, because I say that phone number is 661-510, and I couldn't drive 55 when I was 16.
Oh, great. There you go.
So it's 510-5516. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being our guest. It's been our pleasure. We wish you all the best, and I'm sure some of our listeners will be reaching out to you. Thank
I
you very, very much.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. I always love to say, remember, be kind, be nice, do an act of kindness that makes a difference in somebody's world.
And I know that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you all.